What are the main advantages of a US LLC beyond the fact, when structured correctly, it can be tax-free in the United States? And what additional benefits does it offer for experts or for people who want to build a plan B? That's exactly what we are going to talk about in this video. Before we get started, a quick note: if you are interested in setting up a US LLC and you need help with the process, you can reach out to us through the link in the description below, and we help international entrepreneurs and experts set up and run their LLCs properly. Now let's get into the topic. Most people know the LLC because of one thing: tax advantages, because under the right conditions, a single member LLC owned by a non-US resident can be tax neutral in the United States. And that usually means the LLC has no permanent establishment in the US, and the owner is not a US resident, and the income is generated outside the United States. In that case, the LLC itself generally does not pay US taxes, even if some of the customers are located in the US. However, in this video, I want to go beyond the tax topic, because there are several advantages of a US LLC that have nothing to do with tax optimization, but instead with financial flexibility, international mobility, and building a plan B. Let's go through some of the most interesting ones. Number one is access to a US personal tax number, also called ITIN. One major advantage of forming a US LLC is that it allows you to apply for a US personal tax identification number, known also as an ITIN. This is different from the EIN, the employer identification number, which is a tax number for the company itself. Normally, to receive an ITIN, you need to show some connection to US income. For example, if you own rental property in the US, you will receive one. But if you don't have that, an LLC can create the basis for applying for an ITIN. And once you have an ITIN, something very interesting becomes possible. You can start building a US credit history. And the ITIN functions similarly to a social security number inside many financial systems. So banks and credit bureaus track your financial activity under that number. And that means you can build a US credit card, qualify for American credit cards, receive higher credit limits, and collect travel rewards and points. And the US credit card ecosystem is far more advanced than what most people are used to in Europe. For example, if you run a business and spend significant amounts on advertising, be it Google ads, Facebook ads, and similar expenses, those payments can generate a huge amount of reward points and travel miles. At the same time, you are building a strong credit history. Another important point is that the United States does not participate in the CRS automatic information exchange system, and this means it's possible to establish a financial identity that is independent from European financial reporting systems. For people thinking about asset diversification or Plan B, that can be a meaningful advantage. The second point is using an LLC as a corporate pension structure. Another interesting use of an LLC is something that many people don't think about: using it as a corporate pension structure. Many countries offer retirement visas, for example, in parts of Latin America, Thailand, Dubai, and other jurisdictions. You can qualify for residency simply by showing stable monthly pension income. But the problem is many entrepreneurs, freelancers, and also investors don't have traditional pensions. They never contributed to government retirement systems, and that means they can't easily use these retirement visa options. And an LLC can help solve that. Your own LLC can create a pension commitment to you, which is actually a very common concept in corporate structures. Even in Germany, for example, companies can issue pension promises to their managing directors. And with an LLC, the structure could be much simpler. You could deposit funds into the company and arrange a regular monthly payout to yourself. For example, $2,000 or $3,000 per month. Once that income stream has been documented for a few months, it can serve as proof of pension income, which may qualify you for certain retirement visas abroad. In many cases, that's much easier than having to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into real estate just to obtain residency. The third point is privacy and structural flexibility. Another advantage of certain US LLC jurisdictions is privacy. In some states, for example, Wyoming, New Mexico, Delaware, or Colorado, the company can be formed without your personal name appearing in public registers. Of course, banks and the IRS still know who the owner is. That's required for compliance, but externally, your name may not appear in public corporate records. This can allow you to open accounts in the name of the company and structure certain assets through the LLC. Because a single member LLC is usually treated as a disregarded entity for tax purposes, the company and the owner are effectively treated as the same taxpayer. That means the accounts of the LLC can function very similarly to personal accounts while still giving you an additional legal layer. For people thinking about asset protection and diversification, this can be a useful structural tool. That said, transferring your real estate into a US LLC, for example, is usually not advisable because it can create complicated tax consequences and reporting obligations. But the LLC can still play a role in broader asset protection strategies. The fourth point is a potential pathway to a US investor visa. Another interesting possibility is using an LLC as a part of an E2 investor visa strategy. The E2 visa allows entrepreneurs from certain countries to live and run a business in the United States. It can be valid for up to 5 years at a time, and many people renew it repeatedly for decades. Unlike a green card, the E2 visa does not automatically create worldwide taxation if you don't live in the US permanently. You could, for example, spend 1 year in the US and then another year living somewhere else. And to qualify, you typically need to invest a reasonable amount of capital into a US business, often starting at around 100,000 USD or more, depending on the business. Of course, that also means building a real business, hiring employees, maintaining a physical presence, which means a company will pay taxes in the United States. But the LLC can still be used as a part of a broader structure. For example, some people maintain one LLC connected to the US business and visa and another international LLC for other operations. The fifth point is an integration into international company structures. Finally, one of the most interesting advantages of a US LLC is how well it can integrate into multi-layer international structures. For example, some clients previously used structures where a US LLC functioned as a holding entity and various operating companies distributed profits to the LLC. In certain countries with favorable tax regimes, those distributions could be received under very advantageous tax conditions depending on local laws and residency programs. Because the LLC itself often does not pay corporate tax in the United States and typically has very light reporting obligations, it can serve as a flexible top holding structure in international setups. So these are 5 advantages of a US LLC that go beyond simple tax optimization: access to a US ITIN and credit system, ability to structure pension-style income for visas, privacy and structural flexibility, potential use for an E2 investor visa, and an integration into international company structures. One very important note, however, if you live in your home country and you operate a foreign company while remaining a tax resident there, can create extensive reporting obligations and also tax complications. So these structures are generally designed for experts or people planning to relocate internationally, not for people who remain fully resident in high-tax countries. If you are considering setting up a US LLC and want help doing it properly, you can reach out through the link in the description, and we help entrepreneurs, freelancers, and investors structure their businesses internationally, reduce tax exposure legally, protect their assets, and build a stronger global plan B. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. See you on the next one. Bye.